Good evening, Daf Tzadi Aleph, Amud Aleph. We are 8 wide lines down. I believe it's 23 lines total. We're still discussing whether or not do we measure, what exactly do we measure? Do we measure a person getting hit by something? Do we measure that if that amount makes sense? Like if someone gets hit by a baseball, we say, okay, he got a broken arm. Does it make sense that he got a broken arm? And if it doesn't make sense, maybe the guy should be patur. How does that, or do we say he automatically chayav? Tashma, trying to bring up another proof that we do measurements. Someone, a master hit his eved in the eye and he blinds him. Alos nova had a show on his ear and he made him deaf. Eved Yosef ben the eved goes free because he got injured. However, if he hit the wall next to the guy's eye and they blinded him out of shock, or or next to his ear and it deafened him because of shock, in Eved Yosef he doesn't go free. My time, why? Maybe it's because that we need assessments, we need measurements, and over here it doesn't make sense. The guy didn't get hit. Why is he becoming blinded? And therefore, we see that there are considered, we do have measurements, and since he shouldn't have been blinded in those cases, he's patur. Remember, is not a good proof of that. It's not because the guy didn't do the actual damage, indirect. Yes, he smashed the wall next to the guy's eye, but because of the shock, the guy shocked himself to his blindness. Imagine you scared someone, you say boo, and you give them a heart attack. It's not like you be patur. But not so simple. Kidatanya, Brata says, someone scares his friend and shocks him and injures him. Patur patur from Bedin, Bahabdin Shemaim B'Chayav in heaven. Can't add how. If someone screamed in his ear and made him deaf, patur. But if you grabbed him by the ear and screamed into his ear, chayav. Let's bring another proof. Tashma. Regarding the 5 items, the 5 different things that a person's chayav for damages. You measure and you pay him immediately, except for regarding unemployment and doctor bills, you pay as you go. Right? If let's say they judge them for a certain amount of money, but then the recovery is taking longer than they thought it would. They only give him for what he was originally assessed. Right? They're not like contractors that tell you, okay, $100,000 for the job, and then $300,000 later, yeah, we still need more, senor. You know, so therefore, we see that it goes by measurements and not by actual damages. When it says we say no. Regarding checking out a person, it's not a proof. Why? Because regarding estimating the person, we're trying to see how long will he be out of commission for. There's no question. We definitely make that assessment. We want to see how long he can't go to work for. What's the question for? Do we check the item if it can do can this item, can this weapon can inflict this type of injury? What's the halacha? Tashma, bring proof. Shimon HaTimni says, the pasuk mentioned a fist. A fist is able to be checked out by the witnesses. So to everything has to be checked, able to be checked by the witnesses. Shma mina yesh omen nezikin. Shma mina, proof according to the Shimon that we do inspect everything to see if it makes sense. Okay, Amar Mor, Amadu Vehibri, the guy assessed and he got healed faster. Now we said, okay, he's going to be out of work for 1 week. He ended up healing in 3 days. You pay him the full amount for the week. The proof according to Rav, someone was estimated to be sick for a day. He was recovered halfway. He was doing work. You still pay him for the full day, not half day. Because God had mercy on him. Back to our Mishnah. If you spat at someone and the spit hit him, you're chayav 400 zuz. That's double the amount of a ketubah. Mara papa, lo shanu elabo. The only time you're chayav for the spit is if the spit hits the person. But if it only hit your clothing, you're not chayav. When it says be like embarrassing someone with words, maybe you should be chayav for that. When it says Amr ibn Arava Mishmet Rabbi Yosef Baravin, Zot Omeret, Bishor Badvarim Patur Mikulam. Humiliating someone with words, you're patur. Right? Sticks and stone may break my bones, but words never. That is true for money. Right? You're not gonna have money for embarrassing someone with words, but obviously you're definitely gonna have for saying something mean. Hakol lefi kvodo, right? The Mishnah said that regarding embarrassing somebody, you're chayav for A, B, C, D. Then at the end of it, it also depends on what your stature is. The Gemara says, Ibar lehu, Tanakamar lekulika amar or lechumlaka amar. When he says it depends on your stature, is he saying it can be cheaper or more expensive? Lekulika amar didn't mean to be lenient. The ika ani diloba al mishka kulha. Maybe there's a poor person who you embarrass him, he's already homeless, he couldn't care less that he got embarrassed, so you pay less. Maybe you should be mahmir. The ika ashir the ba'il mitav letveh, or maybe you're more mahmir because that's it. There's a guy who's you embarrass Jeff Bezos, it's embarrassing for him to pay a lot of money. You want to Tashma, but bring proof from our Mishnah. The Fatah of Akiva said later on in the Mishnah, even the poor people, we look at them as if they are tzaddikim who lost their wealth, that the children of the Avot. So we see that a person, Rabbi Akiva, finds someone 400 zuz for removing a lady's hair. So therefore we see Shmamina Kamala Kula Kamar Shmamina. Tanakama was teaching you a hidush that Rabbi Akiva holds that you're chayav no matter what type of person you are. Tanakama holds that it goes according to each person. Okay. The story was in the Mishnah, for those who may not have heard it somehow. The story in the Mishnah was a guy who ripped off a lady's wig, hair covering, and he was charged 400 zuz. He ended up going and tricking her to take off her hair willingly, and he went back to Beddin and said, look, she took it off. And he said, no, you're still chayav to pay, because even though she did it to herself, you did it to her. Whatever a person can do to themselves, it's fine, but you can't do it to someone else. Right, but when he was fined it initially, he said, give me time to pay it, and then he tried this trick. So the Quran says, why do we give this guy time to pay? You don't give time for injuries, you have to pay right away. You do. The Quran says, when do we not give him time? When an injury where you have loss of money. For humiliation, like this case of the hair, we don't have loss of money, you give. Any others to continue the case, he was watching her standing by the yard, and then he broke the oil, etc. Batan is a bright that says, you dove into deep waters and you brought up a piece of glass in your hand. You came out with nothing. Why? A person is permitted to wound himself. Right? Seemingly strange that our Mishnah said that you're not allowed to wound yourself. In this Mishnah saying you are allowed to wound yourself. So it's a stira. The Gemara says, Amar Rabba Kashya. Kan bahabalad in the Mishnah says you're not allowed to wound yourself. Kan b'boshet. In the Braita is talking about embarrassing yourself. The Gemara says, Bahabamat in boshetu. Our Mishnah mentioned embarrassing also. Amud bet. Bektanin it says, someone hurts himself. Afapish in Rashai, even though you're not allowed to hurt yourself. Patur, you're patur. Right? So you're not allowed to hurt yourself or embarrass yourself. When it says, Hachi Kamar Le, Rabbi Kiva is saying to the following to that guy. Lami Ba'i Boshet, in regarding humiliation, you don't have to mention the small persons that embarrass himself. Even injury, even though a person can't injure himself, other people who hurt him are hayav. A small person can't injure himself. The Braita says, it sounds like if a person swore that he would hurt himself and he didn't hurt himself, patur. The pasuk says you're allowed to swear to do bad or good. Just like to do good means optional items you're allowed to do. You're allowed to do bad stuff to yourself. Therefore, I include someone who swore to himself to do bad to himself, and even though he didn't do it, you're still chayav to teach you that you're allowed to hurt yourself. Shmuel says beta'anit. Doesn't mean hurt yourself physically, it means fasting by yourself. The Gemara says, but when it says that you're able to harm others, okay, that makes sense for yourself, but how would you include others with yourself? It says you're allowed to harm others. How would you harm others if you're talking about fasting? How do you harm other people by fasting? They can't force people to fast. The Gemara said you can. You lock them into a room without food. Tanya, the rest is not a good answer. What does it mean you hurt others? If you hit so and so, I'll break his skull. Right? So therefore, we're referring to physical damage, not just fasting and stuff. The Gemara says, according to one Tana holds that Rabbi Akiva holds that you're not to hurt yourself. Because putting holes, you're allowed to hurt yourself. Right? Growing up, all the kids like, hey, you can't do that, you can't hurt yourself. This is where it's from. Who's the Tana that holds that you're not to hurt yourself? If you think it says the following right that Tanya. Only the blood of your souls will demand. What is it referring to? Someone kills himself, God will hold him responsible. This is the source that suicide is asur. So now we're trying to bring proof. Therefore we see you can't hurt yourself. The Gemara says, no, it's not a proof because maybe over there regarding killing yourself is asur. Maybe you could just hurt yourself, stam. Maybe it's a different breath. Tanya, you're allowed to cut your clothing as mourning for the dead. And it's not include. It doesn't mean that it's like one of the emorim type of thing, right? You're not to do certain things because it's the way of the goyim. But cutting your clothes that for a death is okay. Someone, I heard it. Someone cuts his clothing too much for the dead. You are chayav because of bal tashchit. So if you hold that you're not ruin your clothes too much, you sure can't hurt your body. Says no, but because if you hurt your clothes, you tear your clothing, that's money loss that you can't fix. Maybe you could wound yourself because you'll heal. Like the Rabbi Yochanan used to call his clothing the things that honor me. But when he used to walk between these thorns and stuff, he would lift the clothing and walk through with his legs exposed to the thorns. He said the reason why is because I don't mind if my leg gets hurt because that will heal, but the garments won't heal. What's the source? Maybe this bright up. When it says regarding a Nazir, a Nazir's chayav a korban because he suffered. Even though he did a big mitzvah, he suffered. What type of sin did he do? He deprived himself from drinking wine, therefore you're chayav. Therefore you bring kavachomer. Regarding a person's chayav for a person is called a sinner by just not drinking wine. Someone who hurts himself by fasting, if for sure considered a sinner. Therefore, we see that you're not to cause yourself pain through fasting, through pain, by wounds as well. Okay. If someone cuts down his own trees, you're patur, even though you're not supposed to do it, but others will be chayav. Someone says to another person, you killed my ox, or you cut down my tree, you have to pay me. But if the guy says, but you told me to do it, or you told me to cut it down, patur. He says to him, if that's the case, you're able to believe anybody who claims that, oh, you told me to do it. If everybody's going to be patur from, I could go over to all your oxen and kill them, and when you bring me to court, I say, oh, you told me to do it. Says, look how they thought. Should I delete it? Right, like, do you want to delete this program? Should I delete this braita if it's obviously so wrong? He says, la. I have to explain your braita is referring to an ox that was supposed to get killed. A tree that was supposed to get cut down. What's the problem? Why would he yell at him? The reason why is because I want to do the mitzvah myself to cut it down. Tanya, how do I know that you have a mitzvah? Someone steals your mitzvah, they're chayav. You spilled the blood of an animal, you should cover it up with dirt. Whoever killed the animal has to cover the dirt. There's a story about a guy who slaughtered an animal. Someone else came and covered the blood. And Rabban Gamliel made him pay 10 golden dinars for stealing the mitzvah. So it's over here, he wants to bring it to court for stealing the mitzvah. Marav, a palm tree that has the kav of dates is asur to cut down. Metve, coming here as I looked. So How much must there be in an olive tree that you shouldn't cut it down? Rova, a quarter of a quarter of a kav. So why does a palm date have to have more? A full kav. Shani zaitim hashive. You need less olives on the tree because olives are more expensive. He said his son Shifhat died early because he cut down a tree, fig tree, very early, very powerful. If the wood is more value than the fruit, and say olives are very cheap, but the olive wood is much more expensive, you're allowed to cut it down. Mutar. It says that only a tree that you shall know. Zaidan ma'achal is referring to a food tree. Ki kolo et ma'achal, and also a not fruit tree. Zaidan srak is referring to a non-fruit tree. So now, if you're allowed to cut down both, if you're able to cut down everything, fruit trees, not fruit trees, why would you exclude a non-fruit tree, a fruit tree? Lakdim srak ma'achal, to give hashivut to a non-fruit tree over the fruit tree. Meaning, if you have two trees that you should cut first, cut down the non-fruit tree first. Maybe you might think you should not cut it even if it's more valuable. It goes by value more than anything else. One time Shmuel's sharecroppers one time brought him dates. He tasted wine in them. So what is this? The reason why he tastes wine is because the date trees are in between the vines. Like it's getting some sauce. Shmuel said, if I could taste wine from the things, that means it's killing the roots of the vines. Bring me the roots. Right? Bring me the roots of this tree. I don't want it. I don't want to kish the date palm because I don't want it ruining. Right? So we see if because of the value, you're able to cut down things. Rav Chisda has to one time Rav Chisda saw palm trees among the vines. The next day he said to them, cut them because the vines can acquire palm trees. Yani they're more expensive. But palm trees can't acquire vines because vines are more expensive. 1 second. Next Mishnah, even though if the guy pays, let's say the guy gets injured, we saw some injuries, you pay the guy. You're not forgiven until you ask for forgiveness. Regarding Abimelech and Abraham, Hashem told Abraham, go ask him for forgiveness and let him pray for you. So he says, how do you know that if you don't forgive him after requested forgiveness, you're considered cruel? We see Abraham prayed right away for Abimelech to get healed right away. Someone says to his friend, blind my eye, cut my hand, break my leg. I'm not live Torah. He said, I'll do it to me and you'll be patur. You're still chayav. However, Kirat Kisati, cut my clothing, Shibat Rakadi, break my jug, Chayav, you're Chayav. I'm not the Torah, do it and I'll make sure you're Patur. Patur, that you are Patur. I say, Ken Ish Plani, I'm not the Torah. If you say, do this, any of these things to my friend, and you'll be Patur, Chayav, you're still Chayav. Ben Begufam, whether it's on the person's body or the person's property, there's no such thing as being a Shaliach and being Patur. Amen.